this is the 90-90 glute bridge, but with an anterior chest expansion. So it is very important that, especially in the beginning of training, we notice our compensatory patterns. Because if we don't notice them, then we begin to train in those patterns, doing triceps, doing chest presses, doing all of these things. And then usually what happens is people, a couple months in, will say, I have this pain in my shoulder, or my neck has been killing me ever since I've been working out. And a lot of times the reason for this is because they are using their compensatory patterns when training. So we want to use exercises in the beginning as corrective exercises or as neuromuscular kind of reawakening to be able to not only notice the compensatory patterns, but begin to do things to help to change it. So, oh, here's Marley. I guess she's coming to check on my form. Go on, Marley. Good girl. So, in the 90-90 glute bridge with the anterior expansion, what we're learning to do is to open up across of our chest while keeping our rib cage and pelvis tilted down in a posterior tilt. Because a lot of times we become chest breathers or we become neck breathers. And when we become chest or neck breathers, we start to develop, again, a compensatory pattern that works against us. So for example, rib cage starts to become very flared. So we start to see rib cage flaring out. Okay, so we may notice that across, especially the area where our bra strap is, and that we make the connection, we start to notice that that becomes wider. And it's not always because we're gaining weight. Sometimes it's just because our rib cage has expanded and now we become a wider girth simply because of rib cage expansion. So in the 90-90 glute bridge with the anterior chest expansion, we're going to be teaching a different breathing pattern and teaching our air to kind of go more towards our back instead of our chest and neck. Instead of having every time when we breathe in, we don't want our rib cage to come up towards our neck, okay, because then we start to see tight scalenes. So how we do this exercise is really important. It seems like it's very simple, but there are a lot of nuances in the exercise that you have to look for and pay attention to. So for people that tend to have more of a sunken sternum, or we start to see a lot of internal rotation of the shoulder, this is a really great exercise to teach that expansion across the chest and teach breathing that is more efficient. So what you're going to do is, I like to use something for feet to go up on top of. I do still make connection points with my feet against the wall, okay, but sometimes having a chair or a table or coffee table or something that you can put your feet up on can be helpful. You're gonna need a pillow, okay, for underneath your neck, because as you start to bring your rib cage down, you're gonna notice your head is gonna start to tilt up. And some people will have a pretty big neck extension, okay? So they'll start to see a big curve in the back of their neck. So you want the pillow to be enough to support that curve. And then you're gonna need 2 blocks, okay, to place your hands on when you get into the anterior expansion portion of this exercise. So we're gonna bring your feet up here. You're gonna get into like the 90-90 glute bridge position, okay? And then I'm going to take this pillow, I'm going to put it underneath my neck, just enough to support the curvature of my neck. When I'm here, okay, I'm going to position the blocks so that my hands can rest on them like this, okay? And my elbows are going to come out maybe again to that 90-degree position. So when I'm in this position, I'm going to take my breath in. I'm going to do my open mouth sigh. And I describe the sigh very often like hot air on a mirror that you make fog. Okay, so you're going to make this foggy appearance on the mirror. And when you do that, you're going to feel your rib cage kind of start to come down. Again, this isn't something that we want to force down. We don't want to force it. We want to let it relax down into that position through our exhale, and hopefully start to notice a little bit of those internal oblique muscles start to connect, and you can feel them from your rib cage that connect down to your pelvis. So when I'm here, I'm going to take that breath in, exhale. I'm going to feel my spine flatten to the mat,
Then I'm just gonna tilt up just slightly enough to activate my hamstrings. Then when I'm in this position, when I take my next breath in, I'm going to try to get the air to go up into this area, like kind of where my shoulder kind of meets into my chest, so right along here. So I'm going to try to get air as I breathe in, so I'm not going to let the air go in my belly. That's not going to be the first place that my air goes. The first place that my air goes is going to be up into my back. Okay, the air is also going to get forced into this upper part of my chest, but I'm also going to keep connection with my rib cage to my pelvis and my hamstrings on. So when I take that breath in, I feel like I'm expanding inside of me as my air goes into my back. So I'm pushing the air into my back. And then I'm also feeling my chest rise up this way, not my chest shrug up into my neck and ears. Okay, because that's that classic chest breathing that we start to see, or we start to see people pant in their abdomen. So sometimes I'll see rapid breathing and people's stomach rise and fall very quickly. This is also tied a lot to fight flight. Okay, so when we're constantly chest breathing like this, we tend to send ourselves into a fight flight kind of nervous system, right? Keeping us at a higher level of hypervigilance or anxiety. So it's really important to learn to do truly good diaphragmatic breathing, and diaphragmatic breathing that is purposeful, that we're filling up, right? Especially into the posterior part of our back. So when we take that breath in. So we take the breath in, exhale, feel the rib cage come down, feel our spine connect to the mat, do a little tilt with our pelvis so we're up. We're going to take that next breath in, keep our connection point of our rib cage to our pelvis, take the breath in. Feel ourselves expand, feel the air go into our back, and then exhale again. Okay, and then take that breath in again. And we feel the air going across us into here, so we start to expand this open. Because what happens over time is this part of the rib cage here, okay, this part up here starts to get compressed and tight. And we can try to stretch it and expand it all that we want, but if we're not keeping our rib cage in the position that it should be, so that we always feel that our spine is kind of connected to something behind us, we're not really stretching anything. We're just compensating again. So the 90-90 glute bridge with an anterior expansion is very good for people who have kind of a rounded, slouched posture, okay? Their scalenes start to become super tight, their neck starts to become super tight. So I'll sometimes give this specifically to certain clients to do instead of just the 90-90 glute bridge. With this exercise, you want to practice your breathing. So one set would be about 4 breaths. And a breath is defined as 1 count in, exhale for 4 counts out. Pause at the end. Then put your tongue on the roof of your mouth. Take your next breath in through your nose. Exhale, open mouth sigh. Try to exhale for 4 slow counts. You will be very surprised to see how many people cannot exhale for 4 slow counts. That's how much they're so not used to letting their air out. They're used to holding the air in. So if you can get used to breathing slow and getting that exhale to be 4 lengths longer than your inhale. Most people are very good at the inhale. They'll breathe forever. They'll take an exhale, an inhalation in, but then when they go to exhale, they can't get their air out. So you want to let it out slowly, and you don't want to force it. Let it last, the exhalation last 4 times longer than the inhalation. So if 4 breaths, the inhalation, exhalation is 1 count, 1 breath. Do 4 of those breaths, that could equal 1 set. And I suggest about 2 to 3 sets of this exercise.